T-minus 50 seconds. T-minus 40 seconds. T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What is up, you guys? Happy Monday. I don't know about that. I just downloaded that countdown timer. It's a little extreme. We'll see if we keep that around. A little crazy. It had like a weird tone to it. But exciting stuff, guys. Exciting stuff. Everyone feels better with a little pump, and we got a little pump going on. So today I'm going to be joined with Dip Catcher, currently figuring out his mic. Let's check in, see how he's doing.
I need my headphones. I'll be right back.
All right. So while he grabs his headphones, guys, I hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good weekend, starting to work. So much exciting stuff going on right now. And as I mentioned, we got a little hex pump, which always feels good. What's up, Naeem? Welcome, welcome. Dropping some M's. Let's go. Maximus, baby. While we wait for Tonto, aka Dip Catcher, let me see. How can I drop links in here? Let's go. I should have added those before. Still getting used to StreamYard. Loving it. I might actually pay for it. We'll see, to drop the StreamYard logo. Might need to get a Maximus logo going up there. But yeah, guys, let me go ahead and pull the chart, man. Let's check it out. We'll go more in depth when Tonto hops on. We want the chart big. Let's go. So check this out, guys. Let's go. Let's zoom in. So we're looking at a 60% pump right now, guys. That's awesome, man. It's been a long winter. I mean, we've seen these again. You know, Hex Orca calling fake pump. I hope it's not, man. I hope it's not. Let's see. Let's add some indicators. RSI, how we looking? Looking good. Looking promising. By the way, guys, I'm not a TA. I try my best to try to predict what's going on, just like everyone else, but I listen to a lot of other people in the community, especially Tonto. Let's see. Let's clear this one. Let's add. Where's my? Let's see. DMI, baby. This is my favorite. Looking good. Let's look at the last time it crossed. Looking real good. I know. I want more cheap hex too. What's really crazy is I sent out a tweet from the Maximus Twitter that was like, this is a really, really good time to buy hex. And that was on the 15th. So if this is a real turnaround, if this is a real pump that takes us to the moon, I can officially say I called hex bottom. That would be crazy. I mean, yeah, that would be crazy. I mean, calling tops is awesome, Richard Hart, but calling bottoms, I'm just playing. But yeah, I mean, even now, like, 16, it's really pumping, man. Like, dang, from 10 to 16 doesn't feel when you're trying to buy more, but still great time. Let's see.
Oh shit. Hold on.
Tonto, are you back?
Yeah, 1 sec. I need to get my camera set up.
Yeah. I don't know. It's looking good. I'm excited about it. Hard to be mad about a pump, even when you're trying to buy. Yeah, so today I'm going to pick Dipcatcher's brain a little bit on the pump, see if we can get any insight there. But we're definitely going to be talking about Pulsechain, talking about Maximus, updating you guys on the progress we're making. Really, really exciting stuff. Very excited. We got a lot of momentum right now, man. Like, let's see, like, when did we do that contest? Last time I really looked at the numbers on our Twitter was when we started the 1,000 hex giveaway, and we were at like 350, and I think that was like 2 weeks ago, and we just busted through 800, and our Telegram's popping off. So many people are hopping in, asking great questions. If you guys want to follow, or if you want to join the Telegram, maybe one of you guys, Will or Naeem, maybe you guys can drop the link to Telegram. Really, really good questions, discussions going on. We've got an awesome community of people that are answering questions that really understand what's going on. And it's pretty revolutionary. I mean, this could really change the game for Hex and really bring a lot of new investors in that might not have been comfortable with a max link stake for, can definitely participate in this. So,
Yeah, I'm on.
did you get your? He's on.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Dude, your shirt's looking. What kind of shirt?
You know what it is. You're frozen.
Dude, look, is it a fractal? What is that?
No, I mean it's a flower. So in a sense, flowers follow fractal patterns. Yes, but some light floral action. So it's here.
Dope, man. So are you able to see when I share my chart? Are you able to see? You're able to see it?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts? What's going on with Hex? You think it's a fake pump or a real pump?
No, I mean every pump's a real pump.
Yeah.
And all the little fake pumps are what add up, and what is the real pump, because it's all looking for is we're looking for signs that the people that have Hex to sell at this price range, looking for signs that they're all out of the Hex that they have for sale. And things like that double bottom, where there was like the fake pump, and then it was like, some like follow through, and it reached like another low, and then it kind of like reversed there. Like those are always good signs, like signs of trend reversal, like like a double bottom like that. And whereas like the last time it pumped, it didn't really have any of that, it didn't like test that twice. If you look to the left, in that earlier one, which was like a fake pump. That one didn't have like that whole, like it didn't range down there a little bit. And so, which you would expect like another wave of sellers if that really was like the lows. And so
you think this test or this like is a sign of a support that we were testing the bottom here? This double bottom?
Yeah, because like what that like when you see one really drives the chart like over that period of time, it was likely like a short impulsive wave of buyers where even though they bought the back up there were still so many sellers in this area that were ready to sell right back down to that range low. And so those, like, if you zoom back in, like that, that wave of buyers, or that last wave of sellers is now like exhausted. And so now like the people that were willing to sell in that 10 to 12 cent range, it kind of ran out of those people. And then point people are looking at the chart, they're seeing that 10 cent range held. And so people are more confident in buying there. And so people are looking for signs of trend reversal, like signs that the sellers have run out. And that shape you see there, just like that double bottom, that's like, one of many signs that.
Hey, I think you got to go. I think you got to go computer audio. People are saying you're echoing, and I didn't know if it was just on my end, but I think it might be your mic.
Is it because I'm playing it too somewhere?
No, it sounds like a. It sounds
so I'm on a computer that doesn't have audio.
Oh,
it's a desktop.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. So the microphone that I plug in is the audio. So maybe the microphone itself is just like nearby the. So
yeah, it just sounds like a repeated echo, but okay. Parlay said his audio is good.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut off. That it was because there were they had two windows open, but it's. I think it was because my microphone here was right next to my screen, and so the echo from there. So okay,
yeah, cool.
So,
yeah, we're good.
Yeah,
so
but
double bottom.
that just any sign of trend reversal, that could be double bottom. Sometime to blow off. Like if that wick had gone down to 5 cents and then right back up, sometimes very aggressive, you call that a capitulation wick, just a very aggressive move down that was instantly bought back up. That shows anytime the price is going to be down there's a lot of appetite for buyers and a lot of cash ready for it. So that's just kind of what it is. But if you zoom out even further, to the it's very similar to over at the left, that double bottom that formed. Kind of in that little cycle, where it pumped and then it kind of retraced, and then the end of it, going in that really volatile range, from there, it's that washes out the sellers, it replaces them with buyers, and then the buyers get some momentum, and then they add to the position. People that wish they had bought then are okay, that's a good sign. I'm gonna go buy now, and then and then when you look at the tops, it's just each little additional pump was a little less and less and less. And then all of a sudden, just kind of turns. And then now all those tires are now downwards pressure. Yeah. And combined with all the people that had bought, you zoom out even further, all the, early buyers who, bought a lot and staked a lot. So they earned a lot. And then, their first 2-year stakes are ending. And then now, there's a lot of those people where they don't really care how low the price is because they're still up massively. And the combination of the people that bought the top that are down with pressure on the price combined with the very bottom, so there's two classes of sellers that, to fight this bear market, it just has to get through. And, that takes time, that takes, onboard takes, new momentum. It takes
with this right here, with this pump right here, what do you interpret the psychology of this? Is this a FOMO pump? Because it doesn't look like it had a lot of sell. Is this everyone waiting to see when it's going to turn? Because
that last leg up. So one way to think about it is that that's mainly driven by new people that have been watching on the sidelines, waiting for the dip that just hasn't yet. That FOMO in and drive it up, and breaking out of that, all hitting an all-time high, retracing it went from 20 to 10 or about 20 cents to 10 cents or whatever, breaking through an all-time high, reverting, and then running it back up and busting through. That's very so people look at that are trading kind of the momentum of it. That's strong there, but also just all the new people that were watching on the sidelines, when it's people are paying attention when the price is running, and it had been running for so long. So there was maximum number of new entrants.
Mhm.
And, you know, much like on launch day of Hex on day one, when everyone FOMO'd in day one and that made the price really high relative to like day 30,
Mhm.
it's kind of like, you know, there was like the first crop of noobs that like were, you know, mashing that price up, and then they're the ones that made the top. And
Mhm.
then, you know, it kind of happens on you know, these different cycles kind of have their class of new buyers that were like brought in from the hype and momentum and just getting started. You know, when you're getting started, you don't really know much about strategy. You're just like trying, you know, getting your feet wet. And so
Mhm.
that new class of buyers definitely what kind of like, you know, made the
Yeah.
top. And then, you know, they're new buyers, like a lot of times they're quick to turn, you know, when
Mhm.
things start, you know, the upriver kind of stops, they like either slow down buying or they're selling. And then also, you know, so, you know, if you bought at, if you're up like hundreds of X, and, you know, like, yeah, even though like there's a big difference between having like, you know, $1 million of Hex and 500,000, if you had only put, you know, 1,000 down, like
Yeah.
it's kind of whatever, like you're
Mhm.
fine with selling, you know, because maybe the first time that price hit 16 cents, you were like little making t-shirts with the price chart, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's there's, you know, and that selling is good. Like you can't have that expectation of endless pump forever, even though it literally
Mhm.
looks at the chart and you're like, this is endlessly pumped forever. You know,
Yeah.
like these long bear markets, like this is actually a really important activity because it's what establishes the price floor for
Mhm.
like the next wave to, you know, come on top of it. And so like with
Yeah.
all with just so much that's been going on in the Hex ecosystem, that to me is like really like, you know, that you know, because you can look at the price chart and look at the stuff that's going on around it. And
Mhm.
like there's all these new catalysts taking root with, you know, between like the Pulsechain stuff and like the Hex economy really being their minds being kind of open to this whole liquidity thing. Like the people,
Mhm.
the Hexicans that were into like the DeFi kind of craziness, like they were kind of exposed to that, like the whole liquidity farming and yield farming thing in summer of 2020, like during the first Hexican bear market. Like there's all this, you know, the food tokens, the liquidity farms, like that was when that really kind of
Mhm.
burst on the. So like some people have kind of been acclimated to this, but now more it's kind of becoming almost unanimous where people are, you know, seriously interested in this, like, you know, liquidity provision aspect. And
Mhm.
so like all these different catalysts that are going to bring people in to where, like, you know, if you want to be earning that yield, you have to first acquire the Hex. Like that's a
Yeah.
catalyst for growth in this next cycle. You know, the sacrifice is having removed a bunch of the supply
Mhm.
that could be for sale. You know, those people that sacrificed, like, you know, they're gonna chain and Pulse X, you know, but it's not the Hex that they're getting. And and you know, that just like compared to the last cycle, like all those, you know, like all circulating coins are now,
Yeah.
you know, like in even stronger hands. And so
So
like
I do have a
there's
question.
a lot
I
of
do have a
catalysts.
question with like, and I think this is a great question because I'm sure this is on a lot of people's minds. Like with Pulsechain coming up, what do you think is going to happen? Obviously, like very hard to predict, but as we get closer, like say that the snapshot gets announced, like the fork date gets announced, what are we going to see as far as like liquidity providers? Are people going to be pulling liquidity? What do you think? What do you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, so that's like, you know, the $1 billion question here is like, you know, how do the liquidity pools react? Some, like most of them, if they're primarily like ERC20 to ERC20, you may just see those remain the same, because the big change with the big thing that impacts the liquidity pools are the ETH backed pools, with the unit scaling of the supply from Pulsechain to the, you know, like the from Ethereum to the copy, you know, the scaled copy you get on Pulsechain, that impacts those liquidity pools. And so, and what we talked about on the last video about how the result of that, like scaling, you know, I think he's calling it the market making bot, is what ends up happening is that the big liquidity for ETH backed pools, they are pretty much going to end up with a of Pulsechain. So it's almost like an airdrop, for like an additional airdrop for them because their ETH backed liquidity is now kind of swapped, so like all the coins that they're like pairing with Ethereum in that pool, that bot ends up with those ERC20s. Their wallet ends up with, whatever amount they had for sale in the liquidity pool. The Pulsechain is used to buy up those coins for them. So they ended up with a bunch of Pulsechain. So for them, so one, that may be another avenue to acquire Pulsechain, because right now sacrifice at the, I don't even know what the sacrifice. It's like 50 to 1 by now. The way the rates on that bonding curve just ratchet forever. So, you can't really like guarantee that you're going to get Pulsechain right now. But if you had a bunch of ETH, you could, and like a bunch of some other coin in, and also I'm not sure which pools this applies to, because I doubt it's everything, because there could be some weird game it's really to prevent the big liquidity providers, DeFi products, from just pulling the rug on their users on the Pulsechain side.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of for that reason, in addition to the scaling of the units. And so, if those people want to keep their ERC20s that they have in the liquidity pool on Pulsechain, they're going to be forced to pull their liquidity, which in some cases, some DeFi protocols have liquidity on time locks where they can't pull it, or in other, the liquidity in that pool is driving the like oracles that tell them when to liquidate somebody, so like there may be very bad consequences if suddenly, just for the snapshot of the fork, you pull your lending, like Aave, like if Aave pulls all their like the pools that kind of run that system, if they're like going to pull their liquidity, and that risks someone from Flash Loan to mess with the price, those types of things can be, there can be crazy things can happen.
It could like the Pulsechain snapshot date could cause some chaos in Ethereum, is what you're saying.
Yeah, 100%. Because for a couple reasons. One, the whole liquidity pool thing, like, okay, because then, in that case, they just get a bunch of Pulsechain, which, they can sell, they can do whatever with, so like that's like the best.
They though? But I thought that with the dilution of Ethereum, I thought they'd be getting very little.
No, because they're getting all that like in addition to what they're getting from the Ethereum, also getting the amount that was required to max out, to effectively like buy all of the ERC20 that was for sale in the liquidity pool. So like their ERC20 coin is like getting scaled. That they're getting scaled ERC20 and scaled into the Pulsechain or into the Pulse into PLS.
So what does the bot actually do after it buys all of liquidity up?
It deposits them in a PulseX pool. So it's like to move the big liquidity pools that are ETH backed, to move them into the PulseX pools.
Got it. Okay.
It's doing that through this mechanism of, the initial supply, effectively acquiring ERC20 copies that are for sale in certain liquidity pools, the pools that they include. It's probably not going to be everything. I think he even indicated that it's not going to be everything. But there's a handful of big ones, which I'm truly not sure. That'd be something to try to look into and understand.
Yeah, because it sounds like he was saying that they're and I didn't. This was a little bit above my head with like big arbitrage opportunities. So I'm assuming the arbitrage opportunities are those pools that the AMR bot or the AMM bot doesn't get to, right? And so how would somebody like? What is that opportunity as far as arbitration goes?
Great question. I don't know, truly.
Yeah.
There's maybe you can try to be a liquidity provider and then you just like get more pulse right away. And then, or maybe, I don't know. I don't. Or if you already have liquidity there, pull it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
So, yeah, this is, and also there's also, so separate from that liquidity pool, craziness in that transition. The other big question are the stablecoin backed pool.
Yeah,
because that's a whole other area of uncertainty, because in those stablecoin, like a lot of the values driven by the real and perceived backing value, like the redemption value of just how many dollars can you get if you name your tether, and the market just pricing it, the tether, the USDC. And so there's the copy of the token on that's, the tether or the USDC keys have issued. There's the copy of that token on Pulsechain, but you can't copy their bank deposits or that whole thing where you see their foreign accounts, their commodity reserve, like whatever they use to ensure some type of backing. Those aren't copied, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
And so
that's like honestly a huge unknown. And what's a little, I mean, not scary, but it's just like with Hex and USDC being the main pair, I'm surprised more people haven't discussed that, and like what is going to happen to USDC on Pulsechain, not being actively, not weighted. What's the word? Equated
like
to a
that,
dollar.
like back. Yeah.
Back. So like, I mean, and this is actually, I mean, it kind of ties into another thing that I was pondering on last night, was that, I don't know if it's like a core characteristic, but it's, or like something we pride ourselves off of, but like this decorrelation concept that we've been enjoying on Ethereum with USDC as our main pair kind of gets shaken, right? Like I think, new pairs are going to be kind of the dominant, specifically Pulse, maybe Pulse X and Hex. And so I'm thinking like, obviously I think those prices are going to be pretty volatile in the first months, if not years, and what is that going to do to the Hex price? Like, do you know what I mean?
I mean, so that like it's like the sum of everything that's happening is like what influences the end result. And so having coming into Pulsechain where the copy of Hex, and so that's the question, is does that liquidity pool stay, or does like that liquidity pool get converted into the like an ETH backed pool for the snapshot, because when that happens, like there, if you're a liquidity provider, you have both of two things. You have one of two things, or you have two things. And so,
well, for V2, but V3 is one-sided, right?
Yeah. V3 is one-sided, but I'm talking about the V2, which I think is still the largest. But the those providers for that pair, it's like, for a fact that hexagons are into Pulsechain, and that there's like inklings of demand for Hex on Pulse, but there's one, like no like real demand for USDC on Pulse.
Yeah.
And two, there's risk of VC nullifying those keys, because they control it, they can burn whatever coins. So there's that risk, and there's like not having like any like redemption value, like that kind of sets that like center of gravity for the coin. Now that's just nothing. So it's just like any other ERC20 coin, but it doesn't have pump-mentals, it has these risk, like no real, it fits into the existing like lending systems. But it's just like a normal ERC20. So like I would expect there to be a serious markdown on the USDC on Pulse value. If that liquidity pool just gets one to copied over, then you would expect that to be reflected in that Pulse value. And that may be kind of like the baseline, like whatever that USDC, like whatever the USDC price is of the Hexon, or whatever that scales by from $1 down to whatever it is on Pulse. Maybe like kind of baked into that PLS, or like to the Hex on Pulse initial price, but then counteracted with new buyers coming in, like our new buyers getting onboarded to Pulsechain to like grow the entire ecosystem are a lot of people bridging their value from Ethereum to Pulsechain and then ending up in Hex on Pulse. New buyers that are like, onboarding, is Pulsechain going to be on a major exchange? Are new buyers that are onboarding successfully bridge into Pulsechain and then buy up Hex, to kind of how thick is the liquidity pool between Hex on Pulse and Hex on ETH? Like all those things go into what that value of Pulsechain, and they're all kind of oscillating, and so
let's say that people do pull. Let's say people do pull their liquidity from this pair, from US or from Hex USDC. Is that positive for the Hex price or negative?
It's kind of neutral. Well, because like people that during that the liquidity is like being like managed in that sense, there's going to be a window of time, like pull the liquidity for the fork and then potentially put it back on. So during that window, if you're trying to make trades, you're going to have massive slippage. Hopefully your Uniswap settings will prevent you from. They'll warn you that you're about to get a 30% worse deal, like, or whatever that is. So there could be some kind of how when Big Payday happened. A lot of Hex was pulled from the liquidity pool and then staked for like a day. And then so during that time there was like inordinately low liquidity. And so, there was craziness on those days, but then it kind of evened out and then it kind of carried on from there as if it hadn't really happened. So, things like that can happen. What I think is like, even if they pull their liquidity, meaning they withdraw Hex and E, they're sitting there with like the opportunity cost of just being in Hex for the copy because there's more evidence that there's going to be demand for Hex than there's going to be, then the value that USDC may maintain without being backed and having the risk cut off. So, if you as a liquidity provider, you have that big opportunity cost. Either you just don't care, it's free money anyway. So, who cares if it's not worth much for your USDC? But maybe there's going to be like a race to the door on the USDC side where, for the snapshot, maybe with that they pull some of their liquidity and then, take the Hex, put it back into their cold storage, and then they market buy Hex with USDC, and then they like are pulling liquidity and trying to buy it up, but not all the liquidity. Maybe there's like kind of like a race to get out of USDC into Hex, and that's a big catalyst, buy pressure catalyst. But also,
it's gonna be interesting. Like USDC, its utility is basically just a token. And something I've been thinking a lot about recently is like, and I tweeted about this, and I asked like, are there any major Ethereum projects that you know of that are planning to support Pulsechain? And I think only one like semi-big project that someone knew of. And so like what's gonna be really interesting is like there's gonna be, the copies and getting your copy is a huge onboarding tool, but to me, a lot of these tokens are just going to be that. They're just going to be tokens with no utility. And so, their only utility is going to be like, trading essentially, or, providing liquidity or, so it's really interesting to me. It's like, why,
the token is what people make it. And, the hexagons are trying to make something of their copy. But if, the
hex copies actually have utility, right? You know what I'm saying? Like Hex.
Well, there are other contracts that you interact with in similar fashion that you do with Hex. Where it's
like what
worth itself will work, like Ample, for instance, or I was gonna say Chainlink, but that's like a whole different thing, which may not apply.
But those
maybe
okay. So those I'm assuming are open source projects, correct?
Yeah, but a lot of these ones are really like VC thing where it's like the team coins, they have admin keys, they really control what's going on. And and also it's like the large holders, what they decide to do. Because what if there's just like massive holders of the coin, they get their copy and they just dump it, and then that just kind of kills it for everybody because the supply there. But ideally, also with each project, you have the discretion of people that hold the coins. Whatever they choose to do is what they're going to do. But one way that, like, if those people can be met with the proper messaging around how you can use Pulsechain as kind of an extension of what you're doing on Ethereum, by means between the liquidity pools on PulseX, you can effectively, like, if you have a track that you run on Pulsechain, or you have a smart contract on Ethereum, it's copied over to Pulsechain. So long as they're, like, those two, the copy and the original are bound by the liquidity pool on that PulseX, cross chain, like, bridge swap, market, then then there's like it's almost like as if it's redeemable, where you can save, it's not 1-to-1, maybe it's like 1-to-3. You can, like, swap in, like bridge Pulsechain, and get 3 of whatever 3 token, whatever token, and then you do your contract, do everything there, and then bridge back to Ethereum, and then it kind of resets back to where you were. And if from the time that you bridged in one direction to when you bridged in the other direction, so long as the price didn't really change by that much, or if the price moved in your favor, then that is like a valid way, kind of how you bridge out of Polygon, and run stuff in Polygon, and then you bridge back, but you're, like, actually, like, custodying your ass Polygon team, and they have to make sure the bridge is working. You're more bound by that market. And so you can, like, so in that sense, Pulsechain can be like extension to Ethereum, where it's just like, the asset is just, they're backed by each other through the liquidity pool, and the same contracts work on both, and so there's, like, there's some uniformity there, and then you can just, when you want to settle, maybe you like one operation on Pulsechain, but you want to settle on Ethereum, you bridge over, bridge back.
How does that? Okay, so I mean, as of right now, at launch, there won't be an on-ramp, off-ramp directly to Pulsechain, right? So you're going to have to bridge over to Ethereum if you want to, like, go to USD, for example, right? Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. Okay. Do you think that'll change quickly? Like, do you think we'll get an on-ramp, off-ramp, or?
I don't know. I mean, it's been almost 3 years with Hex, and that's not, they're on there. And but I think that because the, like, I view Pulsechain as kind of like a fresh launch. There's a lot less slander about Richard related to Pulsechain than there was related to Hex, and a lot less misinformation about it. Like, early on, like when Hex launched, because it like one of my videos, but there was like a single account that just, like, spammed all of the crypto groups in, like, 2017 and 2018, the same, like, copy pasta to slander, about Richard, after he had gotten done debating these Bitcoin Capital. Like, that was, like, what the crypto space thought, that was, like, the first impression, I guess. That kind of held. And so, like, but whereas with Pulsechain, because now it's like, there's, like, demonstrated credibility, previous success, that everyone knows about it. No one doesn't know about X and its success. And like, almost like a fresh kind of coat of, it's like a fresh thing. And there's already demand for these types of ways with Avalanche, Solana, Phantom, like all these, like, adjacent, like, use EVM compatible things. There's already massive demand for those. And so they see that, and they're like, okay, like, that's a little bit more tolerable for them to do, because, like, if, when they first saw Hex, they probably didn't know what it was, and it didn't really fit into any, like, models that work for them. But, like, Pulsechain is, like, like like another thing that's something that's already been making them money, so they're probably more tuned into that as well. What's interesting about the exchanges is that the copy really put big pressure on the exchange, because in some cases, when coins are on a centralized exchange, they may not even have your coins. They may have encumbered them in some type of, like, yield producing thing, where, like, they take deposits, they keep what they need for, like, daily withdrawals, but they keep everything else in a farming thing where they're earning, a couple percent on your deposits.
Yeah.
And the case, they're not getting that copy. Like whomever is in possession of the funds, they got their yield, So it's going to be a big, remember when Trace Mayer used to have those proof of key events where, it's like a coordinated bank run to like test to make sure that one, they have your keys, and two, that, the company is prepared to do withdrawals. It's almost like I launched is kind of like a new flavor of that, where, you're one, just like should be in possession of your coins, but two, it's like, if they don't have it and you start pinging them, say, hey, where's my copy? It should be there, right? If you have you have my coins, I should get my copy, right? And they come to you and say, oh, we can't do that. We don't have it. Like I
think it's a good time to remind everyone, for Pulsechain, get your coins off of centralized exchanges, get it off Coinbase, get it into MetaMask, because you will most certainly not be able to get your copy coins. Lee asks, what are your guys' take on TA for Hex?
So, I mean, just draw what I think is good for everyone to do. You don't need to go down the weeds of like all these different indicators. Just zoom out and draw horizontal lines. Like draw lines where price bounced off the top, draw lines where price bounced off the bottom, double where it bounced off the top and the bottom, and then just kind of piece that, like the price kind of moves from range to range. And what we're seeing now is like the price kind of rebound of a range low that it's been visiting, from both above and below over the past year now. And so that's it kind of ebbs and flows. There's really no use in trying to predict like particular ones. But what you can do is you can pick up on start to put yourself in the mind of other people that are trying to deploy money with the same information that you have. And so that bounce right there, kind of off that 10 cent, that's there's like across almost the whole year, there's like now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's like 6 different times where a lot of buyers stepped in right around the 10 to 15 cent range. Like, see that repeat itself over and over. And so that's strong evidence that like people think it's a full to buy Hex at that price.
But could you say like with that many bounces at that price, that's almost exhausting? Like just how you're describing with sellers, don't you think bouncing around that price and people buying at that price could exhaust buyers willing to buy at that price at some point? Or
yeah, definitely. And maybe that's what we're seeing, because like if you look at the size of that first pump from like August till September, and then the one from December until January, and then this one, it's like those are waves of buy it appear to be having a little bit less energy than the group did before, but like a combination of like the buyers and the sellers, because at the same time, like while those buyers are running out of energy, those sellers are also running out of energy. So they
do you think Pulsechain launch could wreck Ethereum Hex?
If all the major, like if the largest holders market dump forever all their Ethereum Hex, for and so that would nuke the Ethereum side. And it would like in a way kind of cut off because like the Ethereum side right now is the dominant on ramp. Like you can withdraw Ethereum from Coinbase and get into Ethereum Hex. There's a Pulsechain fiat on ramp. Then there's like it's just added steps to get over to that side.
Well, I feel like Hex, like I feel like Richard Hart, I feel like Hex is going to definitely be pushing people to stake on Pulsechain. That's just my guess. But at the same time, like we were just talking about earlier, there is, for a while at least, there won't be an on ramp to Pulsechain directly. So people are going to be I don't know. Like, do you think the best way for someone to get Hex on Pulsechain would be to buy Hex on Ethereum and then bridge it? Or do you think like bridging something else and then buying it on Pulsechain would be, I mean, I guess it kind of depends on price, but
probably that, because what I think is going to happen is I don't expect the major, like the people that really drive the price, like the handful of wallets that are like the big drivers. I don't expect them to go all in any one of them. I expect those people to, I feel like they have more to gain by being a massive liquidity provider and cultivating both, where you're increasing the value of your Hex on Ethereum and you're increasing the value of the Hex on Pulse. And because there's kind of like, it's like a bifurcated, they're independent, but they're like the same. It actually provides a lot of flexibility to, where like, maybe different use cases of, that like can take root, or maybe, certain times of the year when there's activity happening on Ethereum and gas is like top of mind. Maybe there's more demand during that cycle. During times of peace, maybe, that there's more room for the, or more use for the Hex on Ethereum. But I think that, like the thicker those liquidity pools, that's what, when people talk about their Hex being doubled, it's like your Hex is getting copied into something that's, it's not Hex on Ethereum, it's Hex on, so it's a new thing, even though it's the same contract, same keys, same everything, it's still a new thing, so you're getting a copy of it. And what gives that copy value without taking much value away from the original is if there's a huge liquidity pool that bonds those together. That's what, that big liquidity pool is what prevents the price from running too far in any one direction. If a big seller is getting out of one into the other, a big liquidity pool will absorb that and keep it in that close range of like 1-to-1 that it can kind of like trade about. And so like having that like range bound like pool is so big, and there was like roughly equal demand supply of Hex on Ethereum as there is a Hex on Pulsechain, that EHEX bridge could be a massive cash cow for big Hex holders, where that income is produced in real time. Whereas like, they could also produce income by staking max length. In this setting, they're holding their Hex in that liquidity pool, which is, it's not as locked as when it's staked, but it's effectively locked because like, it's not like they're selling out. It's like, like, people in them to then sell, but it's getting replenished with the other. So those are like big block Hex on ETH and Hex on Pulse that aren't actively selling for USD. Those are trade for one another. And so it's not staked, and it's, not, hoarding interest from other people. So, boost the staking APY, and that income from trading fees, which may be supplemented with Pulsex incentive token. Those, they're earning that income in real time that they can use to, whatever expenses they may have. So like for them, that may be a strong cash cow, because they're accumulating more Hex on ETH, accumulating more Hex on Pulse, and they're, getting this other Pulsex incentive token. And they're getting, so, and it's all through the fee. They can then be breaking off and selling that, and like and that reduces the amount of Hex that they had just like that they had owned themselves, that they are forced to so that's how that could play out. And that would be positive for people that aren't supplying liquidity, because you wake up and you have $80,000 of Hex on Ethereum. You wake up tomorrow, you get your fork, there's a massive pool that someone set at like a 1-to-1 range, and you wake up and the pool is so thick that even with people buying and selling, maybe your copy's worth like $49,000. And you're like, holy shit, this is it. And so That's what I think is the like optimal strategy that people can use to amplify what they have is by cultivating that like cross chain ecosystem where like the hex on each one is kind of like free flowing, and because it originated as a copy given 1-to-1 to everybody, it's as if it was given to nobody, so it's like a way that can just be.
What do you mean by that?
An extension. Like inflation is only inflation when it's going to some people but not everyone, because they're earning more over time and everyone else is not earning more. So like the person who's inflation is like growing their percent of the whole, whereas everyone else is depleting. So it's like as if the people who are depleting are giving to the people that are growing. But since it's a 1-to-1 copy of everything, then the like it's like no one is like gaining at the expense of anyone else. It's like everyone's gaining equally. And so like it's not inflation that's like only being given to a certain amount of people and being taken from the others. It's given to everybody. So it's just like it's like a full extension. It's as if it was always already there.
Got it.
And so that's kind of what I mean.
Okay.
With that, yeah.
So let's talk about. So I feel like Pulsex, and Hex will be definitely dominant coins on Pulsechain and on Pulsex. So like with those being the main coins, I feel like the main pairs, especially when you're talking about like Hex and another token on Pulsex, like how does that relationship work? Where like okay, let's talk about Maximus and like Maxi token and Hex being paired on Pulsex. So how does that, like if one's doing really well, does that hurt the other? Or if the other one, like what does that relationship look like?
Do you mean like the Hex to Maxi one, or like the Hex on the Max, or the Hex on ETH?
Let's talk about on Pulsechain. I mean, yeah, on Pulsex.
Okay, so like the Maxi, so like Pulse Max and Hex, or Pulse Hex.
Yeah,
that pool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, with that one, like the Maxi is still redeemable by the like the Maxi on Pulse is redeemable for the Hex on Pulse, and so those two, it's kind of what we were talking about earlier, how it's kind of range bound because there's like the redemption value, which is like that's like the selling point. Like the market's trying to congregate around a fair value, like over time it'll like average some fair range, and like because of that redemption value, that's like a strong piece of evidence that like that at least that price is like a very fair range, because you'll be able to like it is currently redeemable for that same amount. And so like that whole like cycling between like being at a premium to being at a discount, like that whole cycle, like as it passes through a whole cycle, from being premium to discount during that time, on the way up, the liquidity people, the liquidity providers, they have more of the thing that went like as like the Hex or the value of Maxi measured in Hex, like as it goes into a the liquidity pool providers are earning more. They have more Hex. They're earning Maxi fees, but they now have like their liquidity pool position now has more Hex than it did Maxi, because all those people that pushed the premium up, they were buying from them. And as it kind of turns, and now there's a discount, they in that time they have more, like they're earning fees in Hex, but then they are experiencing impermanent loss on Maxi. But then as soon as it completes the full cycle, after that time, it evens out to kind of where it started with like their balance of Hex relative to Maxi. But like at the same time, the whole time it was at a premium, they're earning, or the whole time it's being bought up, they're earning Maxi, and the whole time it's being sold down, they're earning Hex for that full cycle, and price is roughly where it was at the start. They now have the like what they started with plus the fees of both. And so now their whole amount is just larger. And so like, as opposed to if the price of one just permanently went up and never like had any type of retrace or like range down, they would end up with a whole bunch of the thing that didn't go up in value. And so they experience like to them that's lost because they should have just held what they started with. They shouldn't have provided liquidity. But like because
so I understand. So
grows,
that treasury, yeah.
Well, because the Maxi,
so the treasury backing
is set to grow. Well, so the in that case, you know, that would be the down, like the risk and like the downside of you know, like being a liquidity provider is if the price doesn't like have the discount part of the cycle enough. Like if it is too strong up and to the right, then it may not be so profitable to be a liquidity. So like those waves of sellers are actually important for attracting the liquidity that like really amplifies the opposition. And so like you know that like up and to the right, you know, in that case, you know, liquidity providers also mitigate that risk by, in addition to just doing the like symmetrical liquidity providing, where you're okay with eating that loss because you think that the fees you earn on an ongoing basis are going to make up for it. But also, you know, they, in addition to like their liquidity pool holdings, they may trading the outside of the range, where like when it's a serious discount, you know, the liquidity is putting market orders in, they're buying, and then when it's you know, so like when they're losing money from a permanent loss, they're usually trying to make up for it by trading their portfolio that's not in the liquidity pool. So like, you know, eating that impermanent loss on the way up, but like if you also just had more Maxi, and then, you know, then the value of what you earned went up, and if like that Maxi you held outside the pool, you're able to sell into premiums and then buy into discount hex you also have that's not in the liquidity pool. Those are ways to kind of mitigate that.
It's interesting, because we talk about that cycle, you know, trending around the backing value, but there is a real possibility that it never goes into a discount, right? Like people might not sell their Maxi, right? And that's a reality. I mean, I one thing I definitely, as I'm learning about being a liquidity provider, is like you definitely want to be providing liquidity on two coins that either way you don't mind holding either and more of each, right? And so with Maxi, like Maxi is with the redemption value is essentially Hex and Hedron, and you have Hex. Either one's a winner, right? But there is definitely that risk of ending, you know, losing your Maxi holdings, you know, or at least that the percentage, and giving up a lot of your, you know, in essence, equity redemption of that pool, your redemption value, by being a liquidity provider.
But at the same time, risk, right? if you end up with a more Hex as a result, what you need to measure is how much Hex did I get as a result of being a liquidity provider, and then like there being such a strong premium forever that I ended up with a lot more Hex at the end, compared to how much Hex you just would have earned from your redemption holding Max. And because if it does trail, like if it's trailed the redemption value, it's almost like it's just kind of being replaced by that. We're getting that increased amount of Hex from the redemption, but you got in increase just from, you know, the price and the premium, and just like how the pool settled out. And so like, you know, because the price increase, like the underlying like kind of floor may be that redemption value, that can kind of make up for like your redemption losses from, you know, now having less Maxi, you have more Hex, but it's like the extra Hex you got is like equivalent to whatever you redeemed it. And, you know, maybe you might have lost a little bit, but as so long as it's in like an acceptable range. And, you know, the act of you being a liquidity provider and attracting other liquidity providers and like contributing to a more liquid market, like maybe that provided you value at a time when, separate from your liquidity pool holdings, you may have wanted to sell into a premium because like you're contributing to that liquid market and you're helping drive that premium. And so you may from that. And so whatever that may mean to you too. And also kind of, I see Will said, about making sense to be an LP when Hex is experiencing a trend. That's also how sometimes whales scale into a position, is they will like if they'll just be a liquidity provider, because if they were just market buying, they would just be getting wrecked with slippage. But if they're a liquidity provider through a downtrend of the thing they're trying to buy, then they end up with a lot more of that than the thing started with, and then they can pull their liquidity, and then they end up with more. They end up with more. Say like the Hex USD pair, if they enter in as a provider during a Hex downtrend, then they now end up with a lot, more Hex and less USDC. And so that's like as if they just bought that Hex, but rather than paying for it in slippage by like nuking the price against themselves with their buy orders that get like chopped back down, they're able to scale in while earning a fee.
So if Hex
that's
is
like one way that people,
if Hex does experience a downturn, and somebody's an LP in Maxi Hex, do they end up with more Hex? Is that correct?
If it's a downturn in the Maxi to Hex, or a
downtrend.
If Hex is going down relative to Maxi, that means that Maxi is going up, and so LPs would end up with more Hex.
Okay.
But if Hex USD is in a downtrend and providing liquidity, like the USDC that you put in the liquidity, it's like drawn into and then replaced with Hex, and then that's like you buy. So in that case, if you're trying to get more Hex, that it means something to you. Usually, like if you're just a small buyer, just hit the buy button.
Yeah.
But if you're like a larger buyer that can impact that, sometimes being a liquidity provider as a method of scaling into your position, it's like your dollar cost averaging through the whole dip.
Is that what you're talking about though? You can do that on a V2 liquidity pool. That's not just a V3?
Yeah, that would be V2. Okay. It's like holding your for a specific period, whereas the where you choose when you get in and get out. But V3, it's like you're choosing a range. So where you provide liquidity within it. So like in similar fashion, you can kind of do that. It's kind of the same thing. But yeah, I mean, but the treating the V3 liquidity, one-side liquidity as high order, it requires special attention to make sure that you pull the liquidity when it actually gets filled, pretty much, because then it turns into sell pressure, and then if price goes right, you could just end up right back where you started. So that's kind of what that's.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's interesting because we've talked about how Maxi Hex, great pool, and really if you think about it, even if it's above your mint, like the amount that you minted Hex, and you're in an LP pool with Maxi Hex, I just saw your sunglasses threw me off. I mean, you're likely probably going to end up with more Hex than you did, when you minted. That's probably the first baseline to consider, and then the next is what you were talking about before with kind of the future earnings of that Maxi as well. All really interesting stuff. I think that's a good segue. We can talk a little bit about Maximus and update the people on where it's at. Again, super exciting momentum. When we started the stream, I was talking about how we've just kind of seen a small explosion in the amount of people interested in asking amazing questions in our Telegram, and our Twitter's popping off. So I want to thank all you guys, especially Will and the people that are leading that really, really awesome work. Just as a community effort, with no marketing budget, we've in a month or two, we've really grown a lot, which is really exciting. As far as updating on the launch and where we're at, so we're still in the public test phase. We do want to launch another test on V2B of Pulsechain testnet, and I think if we do that, it'll also open up the door to play around with Maxi on Pulse X, which is really exciting. Brian has been working really, really hard on the contract and updating it. So so far the test has been really good. We updated the Hedron integration so that can be run at any time versus just at the end, so that we can take advantage of the AMR bonus with Hedron. So that's exciting. And then, yeah, we've kind of found out that we can submit for a. I'll let you talk. Do you want to talk a little bit about the audit and where we're at with that?
Yeah. So we've been running this test, done like 2 different like subtests, and I have like a bunch of my own little private tests. The last thing to just get down is the Hedron integration. And so far that's looking like our solution is going to. And so what we're doing now is we're just preparing to send it to like an audit, just to just reduce the time. We're trying to get what we are sent to audit. We're trying to make that like the final version, just so we don't have to go through like a whole second or third round of revisions and stuff, unless there's critical things that they identify. So just to kind of prepare for that, like a peer review stage, or people that I personally know that write smart contracts, they're helping out to just like help me just kind of get a last set of eyes before we package it up. And so some of the audits in like, because we're uploading like a request for proposal from this thing. Some of them indicate that they have fairly quick turnaround time, and depending on just like how the timing of it, that may even be worth it to pay to X. And some people have graciously offered to contribute funds for an audit, because we there's no fee here, and so we have to consider that. But yeah, so we're just getting what we've been testing ready for an audit, and then and yeah, so so far it appears that everything that we have built works so far, and then once we get that, we're hoping that can be an extra layer of one validation that everything works as expected, and then also, like, I think that's an important signal of if people can't get the code themselves, like they look to qualified auditors to
they want that audit, man. They want that audit.
Yeah. So people clearly want that, and it's good practice anyway.
Yeah.
So we're getting that done as fast as we can.
One thing about Maximus, and I touched on this a lot, is its simplicity. Really 5 main functions now with the Hedron integration. So we're really hoping that turnaround time and the proposals that we get are affordable. I mean, somewhat affordable. That might be a community initiative that we do need to talk about, depending on what we get as far as proposals for that. But we'll definitely keep you guys informed on that. But yeah, I feel like our the only risk, or with Maximus, is contract risk. But like with our approach and keeping it as simple as possible, we've already greatly reduced that risk. And so this audit should really just be kind of the cherry on top to just confirm that this is truly trustless, no admin keys, and that the functions do operate properly. Pretty exciting though. A little, it's like once we launch this thing, it's pretty much out of our hands. I mean, obviously we're going to be supporting the community, doing as much grassroots marketing as we can. But at the end of the day, just to touch on, like, no expectations of the work of others. This is truly a decentralized product that you're going to be, minting your own tokens with and participating with. And personally, it's one of my favorite launches that I've been a part of, just because there's no like gamification to benefit like first in, or benefiting whales, or there's no SA or TA, or not TA, like origin address. It's a very, very fair token distribution, and a lot of people have been asking us about like giving the OA a bunch of tokens, but in reality, that just doesn't work with how Maximus is designed. No Maxi tokens are created that aren't minted 1-to-1 for Hex during that one-time mint phase. So, it's gonna be awesome. I'm very, very excited about it. Very bullish on Maxi. And the very, very bullish thing to me about being, launching on Pulsechain, we were talking about a little bit before, but there aren't really any major products that are coming over from Ethereum. So it really breeds a lot of opportunity for, new projects that are launching to Pulsechain. And we're one of a handful that are legit in my eyes. There's a few others. Shout out Hedron. Really, really awesome launch, and
love Hedron.
Yeah, we're rooting for them. Obviously, we integrated with them, so I'm honestly very grateful that they've kind of broken down that first barrier, which is not easy with our community. Like, if you've been around for Hex a while, it's a cutthroat community, and if you're not doing things right, they'll call you out, and they've been able to handle all the feedback and everything really awesome. Alex is a genius. I just learned the other day that he wrote the entire code himself, and so that's really, really impressive. We got Valiant Brain in the house. What's up, man? Welcome. So yeah, they're kind of paving the way, and so there's about 3 or 4 others that are stepping up, building stuff to launch on Pulsechain, and then there's a lot of opportunity, and that's that's on top of all the amazing opportunities that Pulsechain already offers with delegating to delegating and everything with PulseX. So yeah, very, very exciting. So yeah, with that, we probably will be launching another test on V2B this week if we can. So we'll launch that to the site, and then once
that wrench into the test was right when we were starting to be able to Hedron connection. The RP URLs for the Pulsechain V2 testnet that we were using was hosting those, stopped hosting them, and switched to V2B.
We got rugged.
Yeah, so we got which honestly painted like that's like a real thing. Like if the node, because like the RBCs are what like route you to the node that like whatever node operator that you're relying on to deliver you the blockchain data, relying on them to do that. If your node operator like stops hosting those, like it's as if the chain is off for you.
Yeah.
You got to find new links that you run. And so
yeah,
that actually was like, it paints an important picture, like what to consider, like in like how permanent these things are.
What's cool though, was really, really cool. As I was educating myself on PulseX, is that this concept that we're creating with the Maxi token is actually something that is like a parallel to, like the LP tokens, for example. Like, you provide that liquidity and you receive a token that represents your liquidity, right? That's redeemable. And in a way, Maxi is that as well. A different mechanism, but that concept is similar, which I think is really, really cool. There's something else about it as well, but man, yeah. Oh, just the concept to me of yield on yield. I mean, like Richard Hart providing a farm for LP tokens for you to stake those is like another layer of yield, which, with Maxi, it's you're earning the maximum yield from Hex and Hedron, and you can also use those tokens for other yield earning opportunities, like being an LP, for example. So I don't know. I feel like that's a very revolutionary concept of this like layering of yield opportunities on top of like liquidity options, and very, very exciting stuff.
Yeah, and so some of the stuff is kind of been going on already with like some of these, if you recall, like some of these like ohm fork things, like where it's kind of like you're buying coins and then supplying liquidity and then like locking those coins, and like it's kind of this like revolving door of that. So like there could be some craziness and some true degenerate debauchery going on. But that's like kind of what what financial markets are, and that's really what we're building here with with like starting with Hex, and then adding like layers on top of it, like through Pulsechain to like diversity into like our kind of like broad, like the broad hexagon people. It's like adding some blockchain exposure with Pulsechain, and then adding some like exchange token exposure with PulseX. We're still like all where by having people kind of like investing within these like assets within like our kind of sphere of influence, it kind of like amplifies these things, and then introduces new opportunities, and like allow people to like speculate and like take on risk, and like try to figure out what delivers value. And so I think this is going to be a big catalyst for growth, like across like I call it kind of just general Hexaco, but that now includes like all this stuff on Pulsechain. And it's still mainly driven, the people themselves. It's like, they're your Hexagon first, at least the people that came in through Hex. But there's also, like a crop of people that didn't come in that will. And so like, we're going to see kind of like, growing and like cultivating of like bulls and like new ideas. And
well,
they're all going to kind of blend.
It's crazy. I just think there's like low gas fee chains just open the door for innovation. Not only for people building stuff, but for people trying stuff. I remember the first time I tried Avalanche, which was like my first low gas chain that I tried, and it was just like, holy shit, like now I can actually try all these things that I probably wouldn't spend $200 of money to test out. So it's exciting stuff. And I'm very grateful for Hex kind of paving our way to with educating people on kind of those core concepts of delayed gratification and understanding like a yield producing product like Hex. So when we introduced this, the concept's been around, but I think even from the Richard Hart videos that we've shared of him talking about it, we are taking it a different approach than I think even he had conceived, with rather than us, creating a massive stake and then selling shares in it. We're, almost even more decentralizing it, where anyone can mint and participate in that first half. And that kind of decides the pool. So yeah, it's cool because I mean, us bringing this to market was kind of a testing the waters to see if it's something that people would want. And it's I wouldn't say surprising, but it's just exciting to see that it is something people want. People are understanding it, they're getting excited about it. And through our process of actually building it and getting it out there and talking about it, we've learned things about what we're building along the way. And I think one of the most exciting things too is, there was a period of time where, and we're still doing this right now, right? Like we're still focusing on the here and now and what we're launching. And right now we're focused on one mint, one max link stake with one mint phase, right? But as like our community is signaling that they not only want that, but they want us to continue to develop upon that idea and like bringing ideas to the table about how that could be done, which is really exciting. So, that's kind of been the main question in Telegram and on Twitter is like, well, I want this in the future. And that's, very exciting to see. I think that's just a signal that we're onto something that people really, really like and they want. And so, we're going to keep building it. So
that's right.
The shield wall. Dude, I'm so jealous.
Oh,
of
is that a Vegas whatever their team is? That
yeah,
hat?
the Vegas Knights.
The Knights. Oh, that's kind of like Smish.
I know. This would be a dope hat to copy. I love the captain hat like line. Yeah, it's pretty dope. Yeah, we need to get some merch out.
Dude, we should be Maximus gladiators for Halloween.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like you I feel like you've done it. What's like the red? Is it Troy who's like wears red? I feel like you used to wear red. And
Yeah.
then
I was
you wear red, I wear blue.
Yeah. And then
like that other costume we did when we were like 15 years old, and you had your red and the blue on.
Yeah. Looks like
And then we gotta do Starsky and Hutch.
Looks like Legion VC's logo. Yeah, I love their brand too. Motley, man, he's a legend. He's been doing so much for this community. And I think they've been running pools for like sacrifices, which is really interesting. So yeah, maybe that's a tool we build in the future, is like just a pooling for sacrifice, because it's just like I feel like there's definitely opportunity there to like create a more trustless system there than like, you know, sending to an address that like manually needs to be distributed at some point.
That's always like you would have to like encode in like how to interpret the pulse chain, and you don't know what the pulse chain contract address is going to be and like and all those things. But yeah, that would be.
How much like storage do you think this copy of Ethereum would be? It's gotta be a lot. I mean,
it's gonna be Ethereum,
but there's no media storage, right? So it's only
okay. So right now it says that it is as of so it probably just exceeded 1 terabyte.
Jeez.
So each full node on Pulsechain is going to be 1 terabyte.
So with validators, are they all need to hold all of that storage? Is that correct?
I'm not exactly sure how that. Well, so yeah. So I don't know if the validators do, or if the validators are just in charge of issuing new blocks. I'm sure they also run nodes, because like they need to trust that like they need to verify that like what they're building upon is the valid, chain. There's no weird like uncling or whatever.
Are chains stored on like AWS though? Like where are they actually stored? Do you know?
So a lot of Ethereum full nodes, people run them where they're backed up by where they just run them via AWS. Some people, but that kind of like, it works if like you need to, if you trust that AWS works as expected, and like you want to be able to like validate the transactions, like it works.
Mm-hmm.
People criticize that behavior because it doesn't contribute to decentralization of node operation, which like if there's like a massive AWS failure, then all those nodes could just be compromised or could get could run for a while.
Yeah.
And versus like if people were running their own nodes on computers that they operate themselves out of their own house, then like, vast swaths of the node population can't just be like shut off because an AWS thing. So it's like, for those are people that just want it themselves, but they're not really like trying to like contribute to decentralization of the node infrastructure. And
Got it.
so with Pulsechain, I actually don't know how that's, and that's like part of, one of the trade-offs that people make when they're measuring like how decentralized something is or how resilient something is, like, which like for cheap fees, you can bear some of the risk of like chain centralization. It's like just a trade-off that you make there.
So is that list of 33 validators dictated by amount staked?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Or amount delegated to you. So like people can vote on who they want to be validators, delegating some of their pulse.
Yeah.
And if I'm right, that pulse can't be sold. Well, so that could be like the competition. Like if a lot of people want to be the validators, which the benefits of that is that like you're earning fees, and you have the chance to potentially reordering.
Mm-hmm.
Where you like that whole miner extracted value thing where like the miners can like run scripts that like look for certain transactions, and then because you have to order all the transactions that get broadcast, they can like change the order and insert their own orders in a way that results in them getting more money. If there's a lot of demand,
would that be caught though? Like, is that considered a misdemeanor or a felony on? So that's completely okay.
I don't think so. Yeah, that's because that's the miners. That's the miners, right? But in the mine. So I don't know if the validators have separate rules for like what constitutes a valid block. But I believe that it's the same, and because in that case they're not putting forth any transactions that don't have a valid signature.
They're just ordering it.
And because like all the transactions, if it, I'll have to look to see if Pulsechain is like a mempool based thing, or if the proof of stake mechanism has a different type of like in broadcasting system. Like when you're on your MetaMask and you click that you want some ETH, what you're doing is the Infura node that your MetaMask RPC URL that you connect with points at. It is being used to take a signature that you produce with your MetaMask app, and then it sends it out to the blockchain, and it sits in the mempool, where the mempool is an unordered list of transactions that are ranked by fee. And so the miners can choose which transactions from the mempool and clone that they decide to put forth in that next block.
So with what happened with you, with like you getting front run with that miner extracted value, can that still happen with proof of stake?
Yes.
Damn.
I believe so. If the right to like produce the blocks remains the same, because the big difference is to do the blocks, but if like the act of doing the blocks is the same as proof of work, then there certainly is that opportunity. Is more resolved with like some of the things like that Matcha does with like order routing and ways to broadcast your order in a way that don't make them likely to be victim to that. And that's also like, it's kind of like a wrong place, wrong time type of thing. Like if at that moment there's the opportunity to do it, but like that moment isn't always there.
Okay.
And so it's like those instances, I think they can still happen. And that's more of like based on the structure of the liquidity pool and like what, like in like all the liquidity pools. And if there's like, because I think it relies on a flash loan where they're effectively borrowing funds and then returning them, and like where they borrow the funds, run your transaction, return the funds that they borrowed, and they keep like, I think there's maybe a flash loan element to it. But that's like what the miners can do, and like in ways it's a problem, but in some ways it's just like direct, like right to the point arbitrage. So they can game it, like the fact that they can game it, like you just need to factor that into how you execute the order. Because in that case, that order was probably, had I broken it up into smaller orders, it would have been no big deal. And and so like just knowing that is a possibility, that's kind of on you to structure your doing in order to prevent loss to that. And so, it kind of like, it's because it's honest, and it's not, like they have every right to put forth any transaction.
It's a little dishonest, I would say.
No, not at all.
You don't think that the people running like nodes have some ethical responsibility not to front run people?
It's not people running nodes. It's people that are issuing blocks, or people that are paying the miners off chain to issue, which was the solution. Like the solution was to move this, like, because that really can drive the gas price up. Because if all these bots are like bidding on gas so they can like put their ordered transactions in, like that can really bid the gas price up a lot. And so the solution was, there's a company called like Flashbots or something that created a system for people to, in an offline fashion, bid potential ways that each miner can structure each upcoming block.
Jesus.
And so the miners make money, those arbitrage people make money, and then the end result is it's arbitrage. It would be this. It's like, it's no more dishonest than buying, like, say you have Coinbase account and Kraken account, and like on Kraken there's like a massive seller, and so you can get a slightly lower price on Kraken, buying it there and then sending it to Coinbase, and then doing that, like, selling it there, and then that helps close the gap and like helps the prices meet. Like it's actually a good like arbitrage opportunity, but just like the way that it ends up shaking out, just like results in one person feeling the brunt of that instead of people kind of equally feeling the brunt of that. And so but no, I mean, it's they're fully valid blocks. There's no like misleading you into doing anything. You're not like being lied to about that. Like you as the person, even if you don't know, like it is available for you to know what the like, even if you can't wrap your mind around it, it's not like that you were misled about that. And or like the really small value transactions, they're not the ones that are getting squeezed from that. And so
it's playing outside the realms of the game, though, in my opinion. Like,
not at all, not in the slightest.
Absolutely, because like
valid.
people submitting to a chain and putting forth a gas fee to have their transaction put through, and then someone off chain front running that transaction by paying the validator of the network, then I personally think that is unfair. But
yeah, then you should have either paid a higher gas fee to compete with what they were getting offered, or you should have not published your transaction just yet. Like you yourself signed a transaction.
Yeah,
when you
of course, I know.
Confirm on MetaMask, like you like a set of criteria that your order should execute under, and it did. Like, and so it their user interface on like the front ends for the exchanges can help people from shooting them in the foot through that. So like, it's kind of like, that's now something like the fact that can happen and it's part of the game. That is something that like a decentralized exchange can differentiate itself upon, and that's kind of how that gets solved, and I don't think it's I don't think it's there's anything wrong with that at all, because it's like the thing that like if there's some type of like because it's like when you broadcast your transaction, you're putting it out in the public that you have signed a message that, if plugged into the Ethereum virtual machine, will transfer your coins into the liquidity pool and will withdraw what is available there. Like, you chose to, and then if that if like the relationship with your order and then like all the other orders that are simultaneously happening and the state of the liquidity pool is such that if someone introduces another order, like they absolutely can, because, you know, just like you, they are putting forth a valid transaction that they signed for. And like, even if they are in the position to be that person, you know, who gets to order the blocks, like that it's not like that is limited to any, you know, you could mine your own block. You could, you know, if you wanted to, you could wait until you had the chance to block and then send a transaction where you guarantee that no one's
maybe that's something we should build is the black market for market manipulation.
Well, not. I mean, it's not manipulate. You know, because it's tough to sustain
100% that's manipulation.
It's arbitrage. It's manipulation, because it would be manipulation if the flash loan didn't force you to pay it back. It's everything. It's like you're using fully valid coins to buy and sell, and any buy or sell is not, like, I don't believe that anything is manipulation. If it's a valid sell order, it's a valid sell order, regardless of who did it, regardless of any pretense. And so I don't think it's manipulation. But something I did think would be useful would be if there were hexagon miners that were Ethereum miners that gave priority to hex transactions. That would be one way to solve the gas problem, would be if we had a consortium of hexagon miners who maybe out of community service, or maybe for some other off-chain incentive, or maybe to claim the hex that you were able to end stake, they may subsidize transactions that have hex end stakes, where they're mining, and then they're able to pass savings along to the user, or making it so that the user, it's almost like an advance. Miner can choose to lend you Ethereum, in the form of just include transaction in the block they mine. They're effectively lending you Ethereum, and then you pre-sign a transaction that allows them to withdraw some amount of your hex that you ended stake. So from your perspective, you don't have to come up with all the Ethereum up front to then end your stake. You could just
is that kind of like along the lines what we talked about in the past, like with people unable to end their stake, is like providing them
it's like miner lends them the funds, but they're not lending them ETH, they're just like lending them block space. They then pay for with hex that they have recently earned. And
that's a good way to do it.
If they pre-sign a hex transaction, then the person can include, the miner can include the payment in the block they mine. So like kind of how like the miner can order the blocks as long as it's valid signed transactions. They could they could like provide that advance, but then that miner has to be willing to potentially lose money, might to be willing to bear the risk of because at the same time, what if gas price massive and that block space they're like they people offline trying to pay them thousands and thousands of dollars for that block space, but they've already promised hexagons that they can do it. Like that may be big loss that they experience because they should have just sold regular blocks instead of like hex subsidized blocks. So that's kind of where that breaks down, is like who's going to bear that, who's going to bear that, actually execute the mining. But maybe maybe a kind volunteer, especially if you're large enough to. I mean, I think our pooling solution is like that miners happening to get blocks at the time when you want to end stake, like that would be hard to get anyway. So there'd probably be limited space on those anyways. But I mean, I think our pooling solution, that's big because it scales with the number of people that do it. And like the number otherwise would have been solo staked. They like it's that number. And that can be big. And it doesn't require like it does require, like either the one person, the benevolent Xy whale that's going to cover the stake and just be a hero, or, like these kind of like offline or like, separate contracts for pooling to incentivize gas, those types of things, like those can help, like that can kind of remedy it. But, it's like, that the loss of you being the one that ends the stake is probably a lot less than the lost experience if the gas fees were really high and you're mining blocks that you're only giving to hexagons. You probably going to lose more money doing that way, and you'll be able to serve less people, because you can, if each max length stake takes up 20% of the block capacity to end stake, that's only 5 max length stakes per block. If there's 100, say there's like 100 stakes ending, if that's like, what would that be, like 20 consecutives of max length hex stakes? Like, that would be crazy. and now imagine the cost to procure the blocks, like, with everyone competing for them, and whatever wacky NFT shit's happening, whatever like DeFi yield farm mania is happening, and like whatever. I can't hear you. I think you lost connection. Yeah, I think you lost connection. I can't hear you at all. Hey, so I think you lost connection, but I also am going to have to hop off here. So if we're still on live, thank you for everyone who's joining us today, and we'll keep the discussion going in Telegram, t.me/Maximus DAO. Follow us on Twitter, Maximus_DAO. And thank you very much, everybody. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Dang, got rubbed for a second there. What am I on? I swear I'm on. Trying to get internet. Oh man, it is not looking good. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for stopping by. I'm gonna play with my modem, maybe unplug it, plug it back in. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Tonto, aka Dibcatcher. Really, really exciting stuff coming up, guys. So check out Maximus DAO on Twitter, and there you can find our website and all the links. So appreciate it. Talk to you later.